give me £1 million and we won't bother talking about the results. I'm pretty sure most people would then want to know what's happened to their £1,000,000. That is ROI.
What do we do with the marketers who don't want to measure ROI?
They can go and work in PR.
Marketers get into heat with their CFOs when they start breaking things down. If you're going out and saying that to a CFO, the CFO is going to cut the lowest performing channels.
There is no world in which the CFO should be deciding where marketing is spending their money.
We want to make £1.5 million. We only spend like 30 grand a year on marketing. I was like, oh, your ROI must be incredible. Then it turns out it's not.
I believe that everything that marketing does come down to numbers. Otherwise, why the fuck are you doing it?
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Labour and Marketing. And today we're covering a topic which we're deeply passionate about, but have never done an episode on, and that's ROI. We've got a wonderful guest with us today, Jordan Stachini, I believe, if I'm not
Stachini,
miscorrect.
but don't worry.
Stachini.
Yeah.
Okay, Jordan Stachini, and we will throw it over to Jordan to introduce herself.
Mega, thank you, girl. So yeah, I'm Jordan Stachini. I'm the founder of a marketing agency in Manchester called Co & Co. So we tout ourselves as the least fluffy marketing people that you will ever meet. And I think our little prelude onto this call will probably testify to that. But yeah, we focus on three main areas. Strategy, branding, and offline activations. But the thing that underpins everything, obviously, that we're about to talk today is ROI and measuring it. And ultimately, you can do whatever you want as long as you can find a way to measure it.
She's a lady after our own hearts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She's thought about it. She's got her stuff together. We love it.
So Jordan, before we get into the episode, we always love to start with a fuck up. So something that is your deepest, darkest marketing fuck up that you're prepared to share with everyone.
Yeah, I mean, God, where do I start? No, there's not been that many, but the one that lives rent free in my mind is one that, and it's probably the same for most people. It's very early on in my career. I was a marketing exec in an in-house company, and one part of my role was kind of booking third-party media. I mean, I'm talking like back in the day when you would pay like to send emails to other people's email databases and stuff like that. So it's, you know, I'm of an age, ladies.
People still do that.
That was. Yeah. Do they? Okay, that makes me feel. That doesn't make me feel as ancient as I am. So yeah, I was doing that, and we did a lot of marketing overseas, especially in like the Middle East and the Far East. So I was booking a campaign with a Hong Kong publisher, and it was already quite expensive, and I'd really had to kind of state my case as to why I think we should do it. And I basically really messed up on the exchange rate. And what I thought was £2,000 was actually £20,000. And I signed the contract that basically meant that we had to go ahead with the campaign. So yeah, that's the one that lives rent free in my mind, but it's one of those that it never happened again. And now I think everybody that knows me would say that I am an absolute like perfectionist when it comes to like the detail of things. I will spot things. I was looking at something yesterday, and I can spot like unalignment of a creative from like 10 feet away. So I think that really, yeah, literally. So I think that really kind of spurred on this like attention to detail. And it's something that I now, you know, kind of harp on about and probably drive everyone mad with about the detail and, you know, spotting it. But yeah, that's the one that instantly screams back to the front of my mind. And as I say, yeah, lives rent free in my head.
Yeah. Well, also like back in the day, it was a little bit trickier, wasn't it, to do like your exchange rate? Because like, no fucking Google.
Yeah, it was hard.
I was made an assumption, Jordan, that it was before we were like could all just get a live exchange rate from Google, but
yeah, just like an exchange rate, you know, app really on my phone. But in fact, I don't even think that was on my phone. I think that was a website that I used, a converter. But anyway, I got a decimal point wrong somewhere, and yeah, but it's never happened again.
We had a story from someone who used to work at Royal Mint, and they would take over these coins to, I think it was China, wasn't it?
Mm.
And somehow the marketing person got left with like evaluating all the metals in the coins and then having to do like the customs, you know, because it's like gold and whatever and the weights and whatever. And we were just like, oh, this is not this.
No, definitely not. But apart from that, I can't think of anything that I've done that's that you know, it's like a proper fuck up. Like that's like a proper, I can remember thinking, I've got to go and speak to my boss about this now as well. And I've got to tell him what I've done. Yeah. But you know what, as well, I think one of my things that I say to my team now is if you fuck up, the sooner you tell me, the sooner I can fix it. And I won't be pissed off that you fucked up. I'll be pissed off if you try and cover it up or you don't tell me and I find out another way, which is, you know, something that's happened to me in the past with somebody that, you know, they were essentially the account manager for one of the clients and, you know, you can't be close to everything, can you? And basically I found out too late in the day that there'd been a massive fuck up that she tried to cover up.
Ooh.
They hadn't told me about. And then at the point that I did find out about it, couldn't do anything to fix it. So, you know, as much as I might be like, why the fuck have you done that? I'll never be angry if you tell me. But if you don't tell me, I'll be fucking livid.
Yeah, it's like I won't be angry, I'll just be really disappointed.
Yeah, you're gonna have to go and sit in a
Worst.
different room for a while so that I don't have to look at you. But yeah, I think it just comes down to owning it, doesn't it? Like we're all human, we all make mistakes. So you just gotta own it when you do it, and it's always bigger and worse in your head, isn't it? So you've just got to get it out of your head and own it. And you only learn that way. You know, you learn more from your failures than you do your successes. So you've got to make mistakes.
Totally. So onto something that might be a mistake. Interesting segue. So the weird thing that I keep seeing, I don't know if you guys see it as well, is this like real pushback on LinkedIn with the marketing community around return on investment, and people saying we should
and revenue.
And revenue. Well, yeah, it's revenue and return on investment. Like we shouldn't be measured. We shouldn't have our KPIs as things like pipeline and revenue, and ROI does, you know, like a disservice because it just like reduces what we do down to like numbers. Like what is that about? And what do you ladies think about that?
From my perspective, I'll tackle this in two parts. First of all, I believe that everything that marketing does come down to numbers. Otherwise, why the fuck are you doing it? It's just a nice picture otherwise. So that's the first bit. So it does come down to numbers. However, what those marketeers are missing and what those businesses are missing that they work for is that they are seeing essentially revenue and therefore sales as the only metric of conversion. And actually, a bit like how, and I say this, I've said this 1,000 times on 1,000 podcasts, but I'll say it again, you know, a bit like how all jacuzzis are hot tubs, but not all hot tubs are jacuzzis. All sales are conversions, but not all conversions are sales. So yes, revenue is one metric. That is one thing that you can measure conversion on and ROI on. But so is increasing website visitors. So is organic social engagement. So is footfall into your shop or your activation. So are a million different things. So, you know, I think marketeers that say we shouldn't be measured by the revenue that we're generating, you should, but that shouldn't be the only thing that you're measured by. And actually, the first part of ROI and understanding it is, what is your objective? Is your objective to drive more traffic to your website? Is it to drive more footfall? Is it to increase online engagement with your organic social? Then that is what you measure. You'll put money into it. You will estimate what you think you're going to get out of it. And then you'll measure what you actually get. And that is return on investment. You've invested in something and you've had a return. So I think those marketeers are, you know, maybe have been battered too much by salespeople or in very intense sales environments. So yes, revenue is always going to be a measurement of marketing, and it should be, because marketing and sales are completely intrinsic and they are linked and joined at the hip. But that is not the only thing that you should be measuring yourself on. And that, if you don't have those other avenues, if you don't have those other channels working for a different result than sales, then you don't have a marketing strategy, you have a sales strategy. So a marketing strategy is lots of different things happening over a period of time, peaks and troughs. You know, you don't have everything on all the time saying the same thing. It's about, you know, recognizing the different levels of the funnel, what channels do better where, what language does better, and ultimately asking people to do different things at different stages.
Yeah, I really like that point that you made. It's a distinction not between just ROI of marketing, but it's ROI of the things you're spending money on, essentially. Yeah. So if you're trying to increase your traffic via SEO and you've spent an X amount over the last few months, like, okay, what does that then result in
100%
in terms of the outcomes?
I think the best way that, or the best person I ever heard talk about it was a guy, and his name always escapes me. I'm absolutely terrible with names. It's the guy he was ex creative director or lead creative at Innocent, the smoothie guys, and then he went to Surreal, the cereal guys who do like the cool cereal stuff. And obviously both of those brands have got a really kind of strong tone of voice. Their organic socials is really playful. It's really kind of disruptive in their markets, if that's what you can call it. And they really speak to the audience and they kind of own who they are. And I was listening to a talk that he did with Social Chain, and they were saying, how do you get away with doing this? And they said, because we have never, ever once tried to link what we do on organic social with what goes through the till. That is just not what we do. What we're doing is we're trying to increase eyeballs, we're trying to increase engagement, and we're trying to increase essentially our eyeball share in the market. That is what organic social is for. We've never once tried to see, have we sold a box of cereal because we did this post? And that is the best way to do it.
Yeah, because I think as well, like the trap that a lot of people fall into, and I think this is the fault of the fucking funnel, is that people go, I do this thing where I spend all this money on these activities at the top that are like brand awareness or like increasing eyeballs on things, whatever you want to call it. And then it should shake out down the bottom as like X number of deals or X amount spent at the till or whatever it is. And so because of that, people have got this obsession with tying absolutely every single activity back to revenue. And they don't think about it in that context, Jordan. I think it is just people going, yeah, well, I've been told we're not allowed to do this unless I can show the ROI, but they don't think about ROI in that broader context.
Yeah, and it's amazing, how many salespeople, business owners, whoever ultimately who's making the decision of how marketing spend their money, if they're not marketing people, it's amazing how in one breath they don't see any merit in anything other than sales driven marketing activity. Yet if you were to say, okay, fine, so let's say for example that you're getting all of your leads that are converting from sales from your database, right? So you say to them, okay, fine. So what we'll do next month is we will only send stuff to the database. We will turn the website off. We will turn the organic social channels off. We'll turn PPC off. We'll not do any more PR. We won't try and build any type of community. And then let's see how the emails that converting sales do. I guarantee, I would put my house on it, that they would fall massively, because all of that ambient stuff that has to happen needs to happen to fill this fucking funnel that we're all absolutely obsessed with. But ultimately it does. And life isn't linear anymore. The amount of content that you come into contact with on a daily basis is in the millions. So you have to cut through. So if that isn't even more of a reason to make sure you are all over the place and doing everything you can with multiple messages and different calls to action and tapping into people at different stages of the funnel, I don't know what is.
It's like the difference between being a salesperson at Salesforce and a salesperson at bumfuck nobody knows CRM company. Yeah. When you call them and you're like, oh, it's me from Salesforce, they'll be like, oh, Salesforce, okay. Like, and they don't even have to be interested, but they'll give you a hot second to like.
They don't even ever have to have used it. They just have to know the name and trust it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other side of it is as well, so why some marketers, going back to the original question, having pushback on the kind of ROI and revenue tracking is because we used to live in a heavily, at least me and Emma, in a heavily like VC, spend what you can to get whatever you can world. And then when that kind of wound down quite substantially now, when you go back and look at the ROI, you're like, oh shit, like that is not good. So you start hiding it because you don't want people to see that you were like blowing money on God knows what. So I think there's also that. It's like a shift to efficiency, but we can't really talk about previous stuff because it was not efficient.
Yeah. And, time moves on, doesn't it? And even our ability to measure things is different. And I was having a conversation with someone recently about, I don't think you can make this distinction now between like offline and online, because you don't have a say whether your offline activity stays offline. You don't. So, let's say that we create an activation tomorrow for a brand in the middle of Manchester city centre. How are you going to promote that? Okay, you could do that offline. So let's say you do that. Let's say you manage to promote it offline. Let's say you manage to get 100 people there without anything ever going on the internet. What happens then when someone takes a picture of that, or someone takes a video of that and then puts that online, and then you gain more traction because their community are bought into them and what they're saying. You cannot have a distinction anymore between online and offline. Something might start offline and something might start online, but at some point it will cross the boundary. It has to, just because of the world that we live in.
Yeah, and also it's that bit that I still think a lot of marketers are trying to unravel in them. Like, a lot of us are still working through this, which is that, like, okay, so that, like, the example is that Canva, like, in the big billboards they did that were like, oh, can we just make this logo a little bigger? And then it's everywhere online. And it's like, you know, that's a very clever way of getting people to post online about you for free.
Because you're tapping into something that the people in the industry that you want to sell to are fed up of hearing. You are tapping into someone's, well, you know, it's very basic, isn't it? Loves and hates. You tap into those two things, you will sell. It's why Marmite is so successful, because it's the only product that can tap into both at the same time. Canva did that. Canva said, first of all, it's saying to the graphic designers who think they're above Canva, oh, make this logo a bit bigger. That's what anyone on Canva would say. But then it's saying to the designers that do use Canva, I hear that. I get told that by clients. So yeah, like we totally get it. So yeah, it really spoke to a community.
And I really don't think and I really don't think it would have been as successful without the fact that it was so photographable and so postable.
I mean,
like, it would have never worked in the same way, because it's a very niche ad, you know, like the chance of a marketer who works with Canva who gets asked these questions going buy one is very small compared to online.
Back in the day, we would have called it's just like, we would have said that was like a PR stunt, wouldn't we?
Mm.
We'd have gone, oh yeah, you've done something in person so that it's photographable or that it ends up in the news, you know, whatever it is. And that I totally get people needing to do that, because it goes back to the point, which is that buying now is messy, and you have to stay in front of people's eyeballs constantly
All the time.
Be relevant.
Be relevant, and not everything you can do can, like, I don't know, you can't spend money on everything. So if you are going to do something bold like that is photographable, that's going to end up on social for free, I mean, in Canva's case,
Nailed
you've
it.
won,
Yeah.
nailed it. Yeah.
So
100%.
Speaking of online, offline, and then the merge and the blend of it all, let's talk about ROI per channel, because we talk about this quite a lot. And I feel like a lot of marketers get into heat with their CFOs or their whoever's managing their budget when they start breaking things down.
Gotta love a CFO. You've got to love the money, man.
Be nice to them.
So yeah, when they start breaking down, like, okay, organic, this is the ROI, paid, this is the ROI. And we all know they're all contributing to one another and they're all mixed. And if you're going out and saying that to a CFO, the CFO is going to cut the lowest performing channels. How are you dealing with that when you're talking about ROI, working with your clients? How are you kind of going after that more holistic, I guess, ROI approach?
That's a bigger conversation, because there is no world in which the CFO should be deciding where marketing is spending their money. And, you know,
we know, but
conversation I have had with people before.
Yeah.
It's an education piece all of the time. You can't sit there with a CFO and explain and break it all down for them, because they're not going to get it the same way that we wouldn't get it if they started breaking down all their incredibly exciting Excel sheets and their accountancy software and everything else. There isn't an answer to that, other than you have to create a culture within a business or with your clients, no matter where it is, where there is an understanding, appreciation, and respect of what everybody does. Finance, operations, sales should not be dictating what marketing do. So I give this ROI talk quite a lot, and one of the slides says, you know, you wouldn't let the sales team cut your hair, so don't let them cut your marketing spend, because it's the same thing. They know as much about marketing as they do about cutting hair, and they have heads. So, you know, they know as much about it as they, with hair, hopefully. So, yeah, there's no answer to that other than it's an absolute systemic problem that you would have to resolve.
There's no overall like big answer, but let's say you go into a company and you're now there internally as like their director of marketing, and you're going through the channel performance and you're kind of budgeting for the year, and you're speaking about this with the CFO, CEO. What are some of the tactics that you would use like in those first conversations, and like when you're quite new, to maybe help with understanding and, you know, help to kind of not granularize things so much that...
So I would never drive every single channel back on that level to to a channel. So we do this for one particular client where we basically advise them on what their spend should be every month. And they're a very heavy sales business. So when we're talking about the marketing that is going to directly attribute to sales, or the channels that we're going to use to directly attribute to sales, then what we do is we give them an overall spend and we give them an overall target. Now, where those leads come from and how they're broken down, that is completely up to us and where we decide to allocate that budget. But that is how I would do it. I would keep it as holistic as you possibly can. And it's marketing, right? Our job is to know how to speak to different people. So what does the CFO want to do? He wants to know what goes in the sausage machine and what comes out the back of it, So keep it as top level as you can with some metrics in there that they can call back to. But ultimately, how those metrics are made up should stay in your toolbox.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that a lot, haven't we, Ruta? It's like there is a level of reporting that's for the marketing team. There's a level that's for your C-suite, and then there's a level for your board. And, as you go up the food chain, it should get, I guess, higher
More
and
holistic,
higher
I guess.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather than like in the granular detail about, how specific
The
channels
best,
are performing.
the best way I ever heard it described is exactly like that. The higher up you go, the less information they're going to be able to retain. So you have to imagine your level is an A3 piece of paper and the top is a post-it. So how do you, get to there? And actually, you should start at the post-it. You should start at what is the absolute headlines of this that I need everyone to buy into, and then build the detail down. But yeah, you're 100% right. Every layer of that chain needs a different type of information, and I would say arguably less and less the way it goes up, just because of everything else that they're going to be, dealing with and care about.
And also just context, right? Like they won't have the marketing context to digest it all in the way you'd want them to.
I do find like what's really useful if you get pushback on this, because we do all the time, right? You go into a board meeting or your senior leadership team meeting, and people are like, yeah, but I don't get why you wouldn't say that. Like, how can we measure the ROI of the website? And you're like, oh, shut up. I honestly, one of the most useful things that I show people a lot, and everyone lots of people hate on Gartner, but there is a B2B, in particular in B2B, there is a B2B Gartner diagram that shows the buying journey. And I show people it, and I just say, and it's just a freaking mess.
Yeah.
And I just say to people, like, marketing has to cover all of this. And this is the reality, right? This is an established piece of research. This is the reality that we're operating in. And if we pull the plug on one of these things, the ecosystem falls apart.
100%.
And that's that. And like, so it is hard, because I have worked with founders that stick their nose into everything, who like don't believe in, like, I don't know, a particular random piece of marketing. Like when you meet someone and they're like, I don't believe that SEO is real, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, I know.
And then you get into these you sort of almost dig yourself into these awkward conversations that you don't really want to be having.
Yeah.
Tools like that I find are really helpful. Just like really showing people, like, or even talking them through how they buy. Like when you buy something, do you buy it like this? Is it a linear process? Probably not.
And also, if they're not the audience, pointing that out. So we had someone,
Jordan, that's literally the biggest problem in the world.
We had someone a while ago, and we do a lot of work in the property sector. It was my background before I started, so we just naturally have a lot of people in that game. And we were working on this launch of this new building, and we've been really involved in it, down to it was a heavily branded, kind of offering business. But that really fed into kind of the layout and what was in the building and everything else. So we were really involved in that. And we did all these CGIs and everything, and I was presenting them to the board. And everyone's nodding along and everything else. And you think, oh yeah, this is a good day. This one's gone well. And then a man who must have been about 67, he was like, yeah, I get it. He went, but I hate it. I mean, I would just never live there. And I went, brilliant.
It's not for you.
Because it's not for you. And I said, and if you sat here and said, oh, that's really nice, I'd move in tomorrow, I would go and scrap everything you've done. I said, but, have you got, I was really trying to be careful and gauge his age. I said, have you got children? Have you got younger people in your family that are around that kind of 18 to 24 bracket? Yeah. What would they think of it? Oh, they think it was great. Perfect. Then that is perfect. It's not about, it doesn't, and this is really one of the problems, I think, that, and you might find this as well, that you find with like founder owned businesses, is because they've started it and it's their child. sometimes most businesses come out of a need for something, don't they? So at one point in your life, you've needed this thing. Now, if the business carries on, you probably move out that period of time of needing it, and therefore you're not the audience anymore. But it's really difficult sometimes with founder-owned businesses for them to detach, and you have to explain that no one gives a fuck what you like because it's actually not for you. And
no one even gives a fuck about your business. Like that's the be all and end all, right?
They care about your product and what it can do for them, and if it's better than the next guy's. So I find that with founder-owned led businesses, that is really difficult,
really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I also, as a founder-owned business, I get it. Like I'm probably guilty of it, myself. But yeah, it's ultimately half of our job, right, is holding up that mirror and giving these sometimes difficult takes on things.
So what do we do with the marketers who don't want to be measured who don't want to measure ROI?
In my opinion, they can go and work in PR.
Or in like deep corporate where their job is like spell checking something,
Yeah, I just feel like, so this is like my whole thing when I talk about like no fluff, no bull, because I think a lot of people, and we see this with, people that come to interview for us, on the face of it, you think, God, they do like really cool stuff. And, everything you see, the actual execution of it that you see looks great. That is 1% of it. And actually, by the time you get to that, you're so fucking sick of looking at it that it's not exciting to you anymore. They don't see the 99% that is spreadsheets and process and meetings and just, trackers and everything else. You don't see that. So I think a lot of people get into marketing with this misconception that it's going to be, well, effectively, you're just going to be on Instagram or TikTok all the time. And it's just not that. Like, there has to be strategy behind it. You can't just go out, point, shoot, and, hope for the best. So I think those people, and I'm tongue in cheek about PR. I think it has a place, but I think it's massively evolved, and that's probably a conversation for another day. But I think that those people that are in marketing that don't want to be measured, then don't be in marketing. Don't be in marketing, because it is something that has to have an impact one way or another. Otherwise, what the fuck are you doing it for?
Yeah, even if you're junior, I think that's an excuse that a lot of people use. Like, I've worked with some people who are quite like, like middle, like maybe marketing manager, but there's a head of or there's a director of, and they just completely, like, the slopey shoulders come out and they're like, oh, the numbers have nothing to do with me. And then when you really try to like walk them through the numbers and help them to understand their responsibility in that, they're like, oh no, I'm just here to
but that's because they don't want to be seen to be doing badly, and no one wants to be seen to be doing badly. But then if you turn it on its head, in marketing, you have such an opportunity to make such a big measurable impact on things that if you're doing it right, you should be shouting it from the rooftops. Those same people would probably wax lyrical about a campaign that went brilliantly and, did what they wanted to do. Okay, we all have them, but we also all have absolute shitters. Like, we just do. It's just the way that the game works. But you can't not have accountability in marketing. You can't.
It's also like, I feel like for me at least, it would be really disorientating because you wouldn't know what's good and what's bad. So you're just doing stuff 100%. At that point.
It's shit at the wall.
Maybe some people are okay with that, but I'd just be like I am ungrounded right now. I don't know what's going on.
How do you know if you're getting better? How do you measure your understanding? How do you know if you're driving anything forward? Like, it's always about test and learn. It is. And, again, those people could be in cultures and environments where it's not supportive and, the buck is passed around, and it's that kind of culture, which get out of that culture. That isn't a culture that anyone should be working in. But to say the numbers have nothing to do with me, or I don't want to be measured, then you're in the wrong job.
And what about on the flip side? What about CEOs that think that kind of marketing ROI is intangible or this mysterious thing that shouldn't be calculated?
Not met one yet. They're normally the other way, where they're like, we have to measure everything. And then that's normally where you get a marketer going, oh, well, you can't measure this and you can't measure that, but you can measure it. So I haven't ever met a CEO or anyone who's gone, oh, you can't measure marketing. I've met plenty that don't see the fucking point in it.
Yeah.
That's the outcome, isn't it?
Any, as I say, that are happy to turn it all off tomorrow.
Yeah, I've met, there's been a lot that have been like, or I have met quite a few that are skeptical about what ROI means. So they're like, ROI, it's a marketing thing, but actually you're like, no, when it's the purest sense of ROI, I mean, when it's the revenue, divided by the sales
thing.
Yeah, that that is like, when it's that, they are like, oh, I'm not sure that's a good measure. And you're like, okay,
I know.
all right.
But I bet if you said to the same people, okay, if that's how you feel, that's fine. Give me £1 million and we won't bother talking about the results. Just give me £1 million. I'm pretty sure most people would then want to know what's happened to their £1 million. That is ROI.
Yeah. And it's the same group of people who will also say, we've worked, like, people like Ruta and I will go in, we'll work out that their budget should be probably like 3 times the amount it should be based on their ROI. And based on, other factors, but ROI is a big one, that helps us work out what your budget realistically should be.
Yeah.
And then they'll laugh you off the table. They'll be like, no. One of my most infamous client stories is they were like, oh, we want to make £1.5 million like back. We only spend like 30 grand a year on marketing. And I was like, your ROI must be incredible. Yeah. And then it turns out it's not. And yeah, they needed to, I can't even remember what they needed to spend. It was outrageous.
I love the concept of people thinking that they can basically spend nothing and get loads back. And it's like, if that was true, wouldn't every business be successful? Wouldn't we all be billionaires? Like, it doesn't make sense.
People want champagne results for lemonade money. That is what they want. And don't we all? Fucking hell, don't we all?
That'd be great. Like, I want that for you, but it's just not possible.
Yeah. I'd love to go buy a house for £2. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just not how things work. So I think there's a lot of delusion out there.
What would you do, Ruta? What's your...
If a CEO was like, marketing ROI doesn't exist, or like, it's not measurable.
Yeah, leave, run.
You know what, actually, I would be like, okay, let's say they have salespeople. How much did that salesperson bring in last year and how much did you pay for them? Okay, that's the ROI of that salesperson. We can do the same thing in marketing.
Yeah.
Like, if there's a comparison like that,
definitely,
I would probably use something like that. And otherwise, I'd just be really questioning their maths credentials.
And also, how have you got a business?
Yeah, like, at some point, I'm just like, when you're talking to some people, you're like, nothing I can say will ever touch this. Like, I'm out of power here.
You can't be helped.
Yeah.
And what about the people, I guess this kind of leads on from the people who maybe think it's intangible. What about the people who think they've got no access to measuring ROI? Like, because we understandably, Ruta and I do encounter marketers who are not allowed to, obviously, especially when it comes to revenue and pipeline, they're just completely excluded from the conversation. So if that was the situation you found yourself in, Jordan, like, where would you start, like, to start talking about ROI?
So I guess, there's a million different answers to that, isn't it? But let's say we've got that scenario where you've been brought in as a marketing person and you're not at the table to understand what the revenue is, just as a start. What can you do? Like, what can you influence? What is in your universe? So at that point, start measuring. Just start measuring, because if you can start measuring and showing the results that you're getting, then somebody somewhere is going to do the maths on it. And then it's either going to be brought to you as a good thing or it's going to be brought to you as a bad thing. But you have to kind of join the dots for people, I think. So what can you influence and, what can you control? If you can start measuring what you're doing, and really the way to measure is you have to look at your journey. So what are you actually doing and what are the touch points? And then at those touch points, how can you measure them? It's difficult to say how can you measure marketing. Well, it totally depends on what you're doing, the platforms you're using, the journey, all of that kind of stuff. So what's your journey? Where are the touch points? And at those touch points, how can you make a measurement? How can you take a snapshot in time of what is happening there and just start collating that information for yourself, if nothing else? Because you can still work out your own ROI. You still know as a marketing person, okay, we're spending 10 grand on this or £1 million on this or 100 grand on this and we're getting X. So you can work out your, kind of micro ROI of your department. Then it's about taking that a step further and going, okay, this is what we're doing in this department. How is that having an impact on the business? And there's no way around that. You have to push yourself into those conversations and situations sometimes. If it falls on deaf ears, it falls on deaf ears, but you can only control what is in your sphere. So start controlling your own universe and on that micro level, start having your shit together and your numbers together, because when the time comes, and it will come because someone will do the maths at some point, you're ready to go.
Yeah, because it is so often, especially at the moment, I feel like with everything that's going on in marketing, like a lot of marketers feel like it's very easy to be replaced by AI or whatever it might be that's coming in and taking your job. But if you actually have that data collated, you've got a really fucking good argument for like why you should be in the business, why you should carry on, maybe why you should even have more resource than less. I always think the first thing I ever do when I talk to somebody who's like, I can't measure anything, I'm like, you got a website, you got Google Analytics, you're all right. Yeah. Like you can use that as
do some stuff.
At the very least.
100%. Even on a more basic level than that, if you've got a website that form fills, for example, are being sent to an email address, then okay, it might take you all day. You might manually have to do it, but you can manually count how many inquiries are coming in from a campaign that you've done or whatever. Yeah, that there is always, it might not be really rudimentary and basic. It might be really complex, but you can measure something. Sometimes by starting at that really basic level is the only way that you can build up. And it's sometimes the best way to do it. You know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, and start, you know, just start small and go up from there. But it's interesting what you say about AI, because I get asked this, you know, quite a lot. And I'm in more, I guess, of a creative space, in that what we're doing is quite creative. However, I think no matter who you are in marketing, there will always be a place for humans, because the one thing that AI cannot ever replace is connection. Now, when that comes to a creative execution, you know, the connection that you can create in a piece of copy, in a visual, anything, that can only come from a human understanding another human. The Canva example we were talking about before worked great because the person who came up with that idea was connected to and understood the people that they were talking to. AI can't do that. So you're never going to be able to replace human connection, and just that feeling that you get sometimes. You know, there's things we've done before where I'm like, I don't really have any basis of why this is the right thing to do. It just is, and you can't replace that. And, you know, again, probably more from a creative perspective, but the example I always give is that we all three of us now could go to IKEA and we could all go and buy a Billy bookcase for 90 quid. It would be fine. It would be a bookcase. It would do what we need it to do. We're not bothered that everyone else has got it. We're not bothered that it doesn't look any different. It'll come straight off the shelf. It's, you know, and it will do a job, right? We could also all go out and commission a bespoke shelving unit from a master craftsman, and they would all look completely different because we've all had our own input into it. They will all cost significantly different, but they'll be more than 90 quid. It will last longer. It will have a story. It will be a talking piece. Creatives, humans, are the bookcase created by the master craftsman. AI is the Billy bookcase, and that is just the way that it is. And there will always be a place for it. There will always be a place for a cheaper, more affordable option. But there will also be a place for quality and something that people will remember and talk about. No one is going to sit here in 100 years' time talking about Billy bookcase. They're just not. But they are going to talk about a piece that maybe was made for, you know, their grandparent or their great grandparent that is still in their house and that they treasure and has a story and has had, you know, the books on of their family for however many years. So there is a place for it, but it's not going to take us all out, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm just like, not yet. I can't do it yet. But the actual human connection, obviously, it cannot do because it's not human. So we're going to hold on to that. We like to wrap up all our episodes with a little bit of marketing gossip. So something that you've seen that you love, that you hate, something that is living in your mind rent-free right now.
Okay. So I've done quite a few of these takedowns on LinkedIn that have got me in hot water, but also I'm right in what I'm saying. So what works me at the moment, or what have I seen? So I'll tell you what that really kind of bothers me is when you see like what should be regional advertising done badly. So there was a campaign that ran up here. It was actually one that I talked about on LinkedIn, and it was Magnum, you know, the ice creams. They did it. And they ran a couple of ads. One was, I don't know if either of you are familiar with Manchester at all, but there is an area called Piccadilly Gardens, right, which might sound lovely. It isn't at all. You don't want to go through there. In fact, I would walk round it to go to wherever I need to go. And it's notoriously not a nice place. They put up a billboard in the middle of summer, maybe last year or the year before, and it was about Magnum, and it was basically about, enjoying a Magnum in Piccadilly Gardens. And it was just so evident that nobody on that marketing team had even bothered to research where it was, let alone been to Manchester, because everyone was looking at it going, "Are they fucking mad? You would eat a Magnum. You would not eat a Magnum in Piccadilly Gardens." And then they did a similar one last year, I think it was, where it was like, it said something about, and this is the one that I wrote about on LinkedIn, something like the best thing since 1980, whatever. And it just made no sense. And, I did a post about it, and people were actually referring to an FA Cup game between United and City, and that had happened. And, is it this? Is it that? And it wasn't. It was just the year that Magnum came out. And, when you think, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
Expect people to know this.
Yeah. But then on the other side, Hooch, the drink Hooch, like the Bacardi Breezer type thing. They did a campaign recently where it said, and again, this will mean nothing to you as people that aren't from Manchester, but it will to Manx, there when Ancoats had Sankeys and not sourdough. And that's about a place that, Ancoats was a really kind of gritty, grungy, you wouldn't want to walk around there on your own at night, in the 90s. And it's where Sankeys was, which was this big nightclub, obviously selling hooch. Now Ancoats is one of the most expensive parts of Manchester, and it is very yuppie, for want of a better word, and it's actually where nobody from Manchester lives, because it's just not really for for locals. But that was a perfect piece of regional advertising, because everybody that's a Manx knows about Ancoats. They know the story of Ancoats. They know Sankeys. Sankeys is like an absolute national treasure up here, and that's it done really well. People outside of Manchester are not meant to get it. They're not meant to understand it. But like the Canva ad, it's talking to people that really do. And I think I love things like that really talk to an audience. But when it's done in a really lazy or, whitewashed way, just why? Like, you had that money to do an outdoor advertising campaign, and that's how you chose to spend it. It's frustrating, yeah, and it gives these marketing people a bad name at the end of the day. So yeah, that's probably what gets on my nerves.
I'm going to keep my eye out now for local advertising, like localized advertising, because I probably like subconsciously notice stuff, but I don't ever look at it with that lens. I think I'm like, no, not more.
I don't feel like you live somewhere where there's just tons and tons of advertisement either, though. So
they're probably not going to do that round here.
Yeah, probably not going to do a local for you. Yeah.
But like, I don't know, next time I go somewhere where someone might be bothered to spend some advertising money.
Well, they did it. I mean, I don't know where you guys are, but they did it down in London as well when IKEA opened their shop on Oxford Street or Regent Street. I can't remember where it was. So IKEA opened their first like high street store, right? And John Lewis came out with an outdoor campaign that was like, when you prefer quality over flat pack or something. But it was basically a very subtle dig at the fact IKEA were opening a shop on the high street. Now, I, again, saw this on LinkedIn, people in London getting very irate about it and everything else. To me, it meant nothing. Like, we don't have an IKEA on the high street. And it just that wouldn't work here. But I really liked that it spoke to that audience, those people within that city that it was relevant to, because every other type of marketing is becoming so much more individualized and so much more focused. It has never been easier, and this is one of my gripes with PR, is that it has never been easier to speak to individuals en masse ever. Like, it really is. You can speak to an individual en masse now super easy in a way that you couldn't before. So you can really create a narrative with a person, but people can also create their own narratives. People aren't reliant anymore on marketers or PR people telling them the story. You're really lucky now if you can tell people what you want the story to be, and then they tell it back to you in the way that you want. So when you see these like regionalized campaigns that wouldn't work anywhere else other than exactly where they are, I just think they're brilliant. I think they're really smart, and I think that they really, they speak to people, and that is what marketing is meant to do. It's meant to speak to people.
Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. If you were an ROI skeptic, and you still are one at the end of this, I don't know what to say to you. Great conclusion.
Yeah.
Just, are you okay? Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Do you need a cuddle?
Do you need to work in PR? I don't know.